Welcome to
The Neapolitan.
Scoop Podcast.
My name is Steph.
My name is Shay.
and my name is Rose. Thank you for tuning in to Neapolitan Scoop Podcast, where you get your weekly scoop. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, what are you waiting for? Go subscribe right now. Like always, before we jump into our content, please be advised that it is created for adult audiences only. We advise listener and viewer discretion. Today's topic, postpartum depression. Perinatal depression refers to the depression occurring during pregnancy after childbirth. The use of the term perinatal recognizes that depression associated with having a baby often begins during pregnancy. So that's why they call it, instead of postpartum, they call it perinatal because it includes everything prior and after pregnancy. Symptoms of perinatal depression include feeling sad or having depression, loss of interest or pleasure in activities that you once enjoyed, changes in
Mhm.
your appetite, trouble sleeping or sleeping way too much, loss of energy or increased fatigue, increase in purposeless physical activities or inability to sit still, pacing, your handwriting, hand wiggling, or slowed movements or speech, feeling worthless or guilty, difficulty thinking, concentrating, or making decisions, thoughts of death or suicide, crying for no reason, lack of interest. Oh, my thing just went. Lack of interest in the baby, not feeling bonded to the baby, or feeling very anxious about or around the baby. Feelings of being a bad mother, as well as fear of harming the baby or oneself. Don't let anybody tell you that depression feels one way. Depression can come in many ways and forms. So if you think or feel like you're having depression, talk to somebody, let somebody know, get help. But with that being said, we're going to head over to Shay for some questions.
All right, awesome. So, first question. Have you experienced postpartum depression after having a child?
Who wants to go first?
I think I
I don't
have
think
for
I
sure.
have.
I definitely did.
I
Mm,
I know I have. And I've had three. Now I'll say I
well,
didn't feel it. I didn't feel postpartum depression with the first one, or at least I didn't think I experienced it. But I was much younger, so I wouldn't have known. I feel like as I got older and had the other children at an older age, I was more educated on like mental health and like like I was more in tune with my body. I knew
mm,
like something wasn't right. Like when you're
Yeah.
fresh out of, you're fresh. What do you call? What did they
baby.
call us? Tenderoni. When you're a tenderoni,
Yeah.
it's like you're still getting in tune with your body. You're still trying to figure yourself out. So
Yeah.
what isn't normal appears normal.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I went with my first child. I was able to bounce back a little bit easier.
Mm,
But with the last two, it was a lot harder to bounce back because with my first child, I hadn't experienced life just yet. I was just getting started. So there was nothing that I could say, oh, I missed this besides getting sleep at night. And, I
mm,
had an extra responsibility. But when I got older, I had my children in my 30s, my last two in my 30s. I already had
mm,
like a routine. I had like goals. I had like a bunch of things that I wanted
yeah.
to do to where it was easy for me to lose myself after I had the other two. And it was like, I felt like I
Mm,
was losing myself being a parent. I was like, I literally had to ask myself, like, who am I? Like, I feel like I'm living for everybody but myself. And I kind of
mm.
think that's where postpartum starts. It's
Okay.
you not finding yourself after the
And that
pregnancy
and that
or
make that
during
makes a
it.
lot of sense, I think. It makes a lot of sense that trying to kind of find your identity after having this baby would lead you to do that because it's basically like we have our crises and that sounds like it's something that now you're a mother. It's like now you're not just this person, you're a mother of one, mother of two, then mother of three. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think for me, it wasn't so much an identity thing. It was just trying to navigate all the new things happening in my life. Like when I was pregnant, I wasn't working. And then immediately after my 6 weeks, technically, when you're supposed to go back, I was applying to jobs, I think before or after I had my daughter. So like I was able to find a job really fast afterwards, and they were like, and I was like, oh, I got my 6 weeks coming up. I just had a baby. After I can start, I gave them that
Yeah.
start date, which in reality I didn't really have to, but I needed a job, so I started working, and this job was like more than 8 hours a day. I think it was probably like 9, 10 hours that I'm at work, and so to
Yeah.
do that, and then to have to come home and then be, with the baby, and it's a lot when you have an infant, so you're tired, and I think I lacked a lot of sleep. And so I think it's very important too, as a new mom, you need that sleep, and you're gonna lose it if you don't have the help when you need it. So I think it was really hard for me. I was always tired. I did have help with the baby while I was at work during the day, but as soon as I came home, it was like all on me. And it was
Yeah.
really, really, really hard, like mentally, because I like to sleep. And then just getting woken up all the time, I think it was really hard.
We
There was probably a
know.
time
Yeah.
where I didn't even like my baby at one point because I'm just like, it's
Mhm.
hard. It was a lot. And I think
Yeah.
I didn't realize it until later on, like, dang, that was a tough time for me. And not only that, trying to navigate a relationship, trying to, navigate, like, getting all these new things and adjust your life to a brand new baby. It was really hard. Um, I even wanted to breastfeed, and I was sad that I couldn't continue that too, because being a new mom, I didn't really understand the laws that, hey, you can ask for a private room to be able to pump while you're at work. So a lot of the things that I wanted to do, I couldn't continue because I was working for so long. So
Mm.
yeah, I think it was really hard at times, especially it was a time when my baby, I couldn't just get her to stop crying. And I'm like, why won't she
Mhm.
stop crying? Why won't she stop crying? It was really hard. And I was like, oh, I can't wait till she gets older. And now she's older, I'm like, dang, I miss my baby. I didn't
Yeah.
even I feel like I missed out on that bonding period because I was
Yeah.
just just moving, not really experiencing. I was just trying to, just keep
You were
everything
too
moving.
busy.
Just
Yeah.
busy, yeah.
You're busy. I think for me, that's why I didn't get postpartum depression, because I was so sick. And I know we've talked about it before. I was diagnosed with postpartum cardiomyopathy a few months after my daughter was born. So for me, it's I think I was too busy trying to stay alive that like I didn't have the space or the time or anything in my head that would like allow me to think about something other than trying to, get healthy for my child. So yeah, I think like you, I think sometimes I do kind of look at my child, and she's, almost out to college now. So I'm like, I missed that, those moments of her being a newborn because I was so sick. I couldn't really hold my daughter until she was maybe about 2 months, because if I held her, I was just too weak and they were scared she would fall from my arms.
Wow.
So yeah, yeah. So it's crazy that I didn't even get the opportunity to get, that with my child. But I definitely believe everything happens for a reason. I think, we're given what we can handle. And I know Steph's talked about it before. It's a matter of knowing and educating yourself about what it is, what the symptoms are, and believing that they're real, because people want to say, oh, it's made up. It's made up,
Mhm.
and it's not. It's something very real, and we have to request that help and understand that mothering is not as romanticized as it seems, as people make it seem on
Yeah.
Instagram and on Facebook and on TikTok. These moms are like snatched up day number two, and you're like, you just had a baby. You're already making up a dance and stuff. So no, it's not. You're allowed to recover at your own pace. You're allowed to have pain. You're allowed to be, whatever your mothering journey is.
And I think people need to realize how serious it is too, because you have
Yeah.
you have moms who can't handle those different changing emotions. That's how most people end up hurting their kids, because
Yeah.
they don't have the help or support, or they don't have the understanding for why they feel the way they feel. Like, you know, and I
Right.
think it's very important to be there and to help that mom, that new mom, and not just make it seem like, well, you're born for this. You're a woman, like you're born for this.
Nah.
No, like you already know we're emotional beings without a baby. So imagine going through that. Now I have a
Yes.
whole kid and my emotions are all over the place. It's like times
First of
20.
all, first of all, we're not born for that. That's not what we're born for. We are born with the ability to give birth, or we're supposed to be born with the ability to give birth, but that doesn't mean that that's what we were made for.
Right,
We have so much more potential.
right,
But very quickly, I'm gonna go back to the breastfeeding, and then I want to make a remark on what Rose said about not ignoring those thoughts. But very quickly, Shay, you just mentioned how you weren't aware of, like, that you're supposed to get a break to go breastfeed and this is that and the other.
Mhm.
So I just looked it up. It said in 2015, Texas passed a law that requires public employers to adopt a written policy that supports expressing breast milk, provide a reasonable amount of break time for expressing breast milk, provide a secluded place for expressing breast milk other than a multi-user bathroom, and ensure
right.
that no adverse action is taken against employees who express breast milk.
That's crazy. My daughter was born in
This,
2015 and I had
this
no
was,
idea about that.
of course,
2015. We have kids that are older than that, Steph.
2015. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, when my child was born in 2007, that means in
Yeah,
2007, I did not have the right to
That's
breastfeed
crazy.
at the workplace.
That's
And
crazy.
it's just crazy to me because this 2015, you know how old I was in 2015?
Yeah.
do you know what's even crazier than that is that certain jobs didn't even implement those policies until later
Right.
on after that time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that
So
means if
like,
it passed in 2015, that means if job employers was like, oh, they probably weren't knowledgeable of it.
That's
And if they
crazy.
were, they weren't going to press the issue,
until
Right.
somebody brought it up. I
Right.
know when it came to a certain job, the issue didn't get put into policy until a certain person said, hey, I need this accommodation. And they were like, oh,
Right.
it's a special circumstance or something he called it. But I'm like, so you mean to tell me her breastfeeding or needing this accommodation is a special, see, he called it something. And I'm just like, he made it seem like it was so rare. But
That's
this
Mm-hmm.
happened
crazy.
like in 2019 was when they finally implemented that policy into effect. And mind you, you said it happened in 2015, but with this
That's
certain department,
crazy.
they didn't implement it until 2019. That's crazy. So 4 years later, basically. So I guess
Yeah.
nobody in between those 4 years was like, hey, I need to breastfeed. Like,
But
it
I
Right.
took
think
one
I think you brought
person
up
to
a
say
good point,
something.
Shay. You brought up that it was a male leader.
Mm,
They didn't have to
yeah.
feed no babies. They didn't know jack shit about having to feed a
It's a
baby.
special circumstance. I'm like, it's not a special circumstance. It's just, you
I was
just need to
having a
put it in
baby and I need
play.
a room. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. All
Crazy.
right. Next
But
question.
yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right. So, do you feel like men don't understand what women go through after having after childbirth? I don't think so. I think
Um,
some people decide to educate themselves and some people care enough and some people don't and some people I think it just depends on if they're willing to learn or not, in my opinion.
Yeah.
and I agree. I do think it's if they're willing to learn or not, but I'll say this. Um, men, they say men are from Mars, women are from Venus. So men don't think like us. They don't have the same emotions as us. That's why they say, the man serves a purpose in the house, the woman serves a purpose in the house. The woman's supposed to be the nurturer, the man is supposed to be the provider.
Yeah.
Although I feel like men should nurture too, but they don't have that nurturing bone in them to where they nurture like we do.
Mm.
So some men need guidance, and women, we like to believe that they're supposed to be able to read our brains and they're supposed to be able to think like us, and they don't. I'm sorry to say this, they don't. We
Mm-mm.
wish that they would, but they do not. So sometimes you have to just be like, hey, read this book. So you can understand that my hormones just went from 0 to 100 real quick. And then they went from
and it is a
100
thing. I'm
to
not just making
0
it up. Yeah.
real quick. So my hormones are out of loop, which means I'm going to be acting out of loop. Not to mention that I'm lacking sleep. I have a baby that I have to now pay attention to 24/7 on top of taking care of everything else in the household. So it's a
That's
lot of
sucking on
pressure.
your breast and is breaking it apart and is putting you in pain.
My body doesn't look like what it used to look like. So now I'm having insecurities. It's like, oh, I don't look like what I used to look like. I worked so hard to get this body. Now in 9 months, it's gone. And it's like, I don't think they understand what we go through. They just look, not even during the pregnancy part. Because I've had men that's like, what's the big deal? Why are you tripping? Like, sir, I'm carrying a big belly. Like, my feet hurt. My feet are swollen. Again, my hormones are up here right now. Like, I have a whole baby that's sucking the life out of me. And I don't think they understand that anatomy and physiology part of the situation. Like, I'm creating a whole new.
What that made me think of was this book that I have from when I got pregnant. It says Your Pregnancy and Childbirth. This is a really good book, and it's so crazy because I just flipped through and I flipped through to a page that talks about mental illness. So if you wanted to educate yourself, this book talks about everything, all the stages of birth and how do you know you have more. Like, it's very educational for first-time parents. So we talked about educating men. This will be a good book for y'all to start with. And I think it takes you through all the stages of from conception to like the very end of whatever that might be. And it did mention about mental illness. I think it's a really, really good educational book. So since we brought it up, Your Pregnancy and Childbirth, it'll be a good book for somebody to look into and read if you really want to learn about pregnancy as a man.
Yes.
Link below. Link to the book below.
It's from the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists.
So, yeah. And that's, I agree. Like, and like I said, like that you have that book, you know, women, you might go buy the book, even if it takes y'all sitting in the bed for 5 minutes and reading it together. Nowadays they have classes that you could take at the hospital that educate men on what's going on the process, and they could take them together. So it's just so many resources out there. But like I said, women, we have to guide them because they're like little kids too.
Bro,
I always tell people I have 4 kids, not 3. 3 I gave birth to. The other one I got married to.
It even talks about like STDs during pregnancy. Like, it has a whole section about different STDs and how it could affect you while pregnant.
Yes, and how it could affect your child when you give birth, and what is the next. Like, education is so important. If people just like educate themselves on things, they'll realize, hey, life, they'll look at things from a different perspective. Let's put it like that. Because men literally look at things from their perspective. Like, it's like, oh, I'm not carrying a big belly, so I feel like you feel the way I do. No, sir, because I can't drink. I can't go out and have a good time with my friends. I have to sit here and throw up over a toilet because I can't eat what I want to eat because I
exactly.
You know, it messes with your mental. And and it applies to, like, even when women have miscarriages, men be like, oh, okay, why? Like, what's the big deal? It's the same as having a pregnancy. Her hormones went up and they came back down. And now she has to deal with the fact that she went through all those changes and there's nothing to prove for it.
Right.
Like, there's
I'll
nothing.
I'll listen here. I might actually read this book again. I'm like, wait a minute, 'cause I don't think I really read it when they gave it to me. But I think, just me wanting to educate myself some more and just, get more of a broader understanding than what I may not even understand myself as a woman, the postpartum period, all that's in here. That's crazy. Y'all should get this book. It's good. So far, I ain't read it, but it's good.
With my last 2 pregnancies, I educated myself a bit more because I had more resources, like when we were 18, 19, 20 having babies, like, our parents weren't there like, hey, read this book. Google wasn't there. There was nothing. We was just like, fuck it, we're pregnant. We just gonna have to figure that shit out on our own. You know, there was no education. Like you said, breastfeeding. Nobody educated me on breastfeeding. I just knew formula. So that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly when the hospital pushed formula, I was like, well, I guess this is the right thing to do. Later
Right.
on, as I educated myself, I was like, well, I could have breastfed. I would have saved a lot of money.
Yep.
And my
Because
child,
it's natural. It's what your body is made to do.
exactly. Do you know how much milk I wasted? I didn't even know what my body was going through. Like my breasts just got really hard one day. They were very
Mm-hmm.
painful and they just started leaking. And I
Wow.
didn't know what was happening because I didn't get educated on it. And I
Yeah.
was just like, they just leaked. I just wasted a bunch of breast milk. I didn't even know what I was doing at the
Girl,
time.
not the golden milk.
Girl, depriving my child of it while I'm wasting money on formula because we didn't cover all of it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so definitely educate yourselves. We got books, we have Google, we have search engines. It's just so much out there.
Audiobooks if you can't read.
Yeah, like if you can't
I
read,
mean,
just listen to it on your way to work. You know, I promise you, men, it will make your life so much easier because you'll understand your significant
mm-hmm.
other so much better.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Oh, this is a good book. I'm gonna have to read it. You're gonna be like, you want to have a baby again? Well, I just want to educate myself. Maybe I want to be maybe I could be a midwife now. Like, goddamn, I don't know. It might motivate me to do something different.
I mean, even if you're a friend, it's good to know because if you see those
Mm-hmm.
signs in your friend, you can be like, "Hey, let's talk about this. Maybe you're feeling this way. Maybe you
Right.
should take these steps." So,
Yep.
You could become a doula. Isn't that what they're called?
Right.
a
Doulas?
doula,
Doulas.
yeah. I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
you this: I'm not getting in no pool and giving no natural birth. I'm gonna tell you that much.
But I
You
just
won't
feel like
catch me.
that's so nasty. It's just something about
Never.
being in water and floating around with all that stuff. I don't like it. It ain't for
I
me.
don't know. I don't know how our parents did it. I don't know how they birthed all these damn kids without having the epidural,
Girl,
but baby, shoot me up, give me all the drugs.
period. Period.
Cut me open.
I'll deal with the consequences later, but I'm not about to feel nothing come out my JJ. No, ma'am. Baby head be
Man.
like 10 inches long. No, thank you.
Girl, my last two were like 9 pounds and up. You think I'm about to do
Oh,
You
9 pounds?
had some big
I'm
babies.
not about to do
Oh
nothing.
Lord.
I thought
You
my baby
guys,
was big. My baby
mm-mm.
was 7 pounds, 5 ounces. But my
My
cousin
first
had
one was
almost a 10
7.
pound baby. That's crazy.
I was like, these are toddlers. These ain't no goddamn
Mm,
babies.
Not the toddlers. Oh,
that's
Lord.
crazy.
All right. So, next question, last question. What could someone have done to help you during that time? So, not besides, I guess, besides the education part, because we already just talked about that. So, but what could someone have done for you in your time of need at that time?
Mm.
I think for me, because I was so young, um, I was treated like a baby a lot of the
Mm,
time, by hospital staff, by nurses, and they'd be like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" Like, instead of you telling me I'm about to have this baby, this whole baby, instead of you telling me the pain levels, the stuff that like walking me through giving birth, you just decided that it's okay for me to just shoot myself up with painkillers. I definitely feel like other than education, they could have been more realistic, more honest about
mm-hmm.
pregnancy, what happens after pregnancy, the things you're going to experience through your pregnancy. I mean, nobody told me that you would sneeze and you would leak on yourself. Like, that's not something they tell you. They're not going to say, you lose bladder control because your baby's sitting on your bladder all the time. So, I just wish they would have been more open and honest. And instead of treating me like a child, they would have treated me like an adult.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead of protecting you, they should have just been open with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that during like just in general, what people, like especially businesses and companies could do, they could recognize that women need more than 6 weeks to bond with their child. I think that
Mm-hmm.
giving someone 6 weeks and thinking that that's enough, like that's still a newborn baby who still has so much they require. And I think we may have talked about it maybe in a different episode. Maybe it was the one we got deleted. I don't remember, but just talking about how, having more time with your child is important when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to bonding.
Yeah.
Give them like 5 months off or just more time than 6 weeks, because I think it helps you mentally. I think it helps you like recover. I think it helps a lot in different ways when you have more time versus feeling like I only
Yeah.
got this time and I have to rush back and get back into the workforce. When yes, 6 weeks is, when you think about it, that's like ridiculous. Like it should be way
Yeah.
more than that.
Yeah, I
At least
think
the
right
first six
now,
months.
yeah, I think right now the norm is like 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
Some jobs only give you like 6 weeks, which is like a month and a half.
My
Yeah.
current job is pretty much like that. It's 6 weeks. And I thought that was crazy because I remember leaving the county and they were like, oh, 12 weeks. They had just boosted up. And it's crazy to go back into a place where it's like, y'all only do 6 weeks. Like, that's
Mm.
crazy. That's
Mm-hmm.
disgusting. I'm disgusted by y'all only thinking 6 weeks is enough.
Because 6 weeks, you're barely going to like your first checkup after having a
Yeah.
baby, like to
Yeah.
see if everything is intact and everything is normal down there. So it's like you clearly haven't completely healed,
Mm-hmm.
let alone gotten used to that schedule of having a
Mm-hmm.
newborn. So 6 weeks is definitely not enough. And honestly, I ain't gonna lie, like maternity leave has been one of them things that has been having me question, like, should I become a citizen of somewhere else? Because
Other places
there's
have
places
longer
out
maternity
here,
leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, like that really value family. Like, it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we know the value of family. We know that you need to bond with your child and your
Yeah.
husband, and y'all need to get used to this. So we give y'all 8 months, a year, and some of these places pay you. It's like a month,
Yep.
a year paid. So, I mean, there's places that have recently just started giving paid leave.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to me. I could tell
That
that.
in this day and age, yeah,
Yeah.
the undervalue of how
I
important that
mean,
is.
we just got the right to breastfeed in private in a non-bathroom location in 2015. That was 10 years ago.
That's crazy.
Shoot,
10
let
years ago.
alone in public trying to breastfeed your baby and people scrutinizing you for feeding your child. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, I get it. Maybe you shouldn't have your bare
Mm.
titty out. Okay, there should be like some cover up. But if you see a person covered up
There's
and they're
people
feeding
having
their
bare titties
child,
out and ain't breastfeeding. So in this day and age, just breastfeed wherever you want to. Because I
well,
can
I
tell
mean, I get it, but
Yes.
I think like when it comes to like other kids being around, kids who shouldn't be exposed. Like you go into Walmart and you see a random woman with her titty out, and you have your
I'm gonna say
4 year
this.
old child. I mean, I
I'm
think
gonna
there
say
should be
this.
cover up, but I shouldn't think it shouldn't be weird to see a woman breastfeeding in public.
Right.
You
No,
know,
Agreed.
definitely not. Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I feel like there's weirder things that we see
true.
that it's like a woman breastfeeding. I would honestly, if my child, if someone was breastfeeding and my child questioned it, I'll just explain it to them. Look, she's giving. Honestly, my kids will understand it because they were breastfed, so they know what was going on.
Yeah.
It's like they know what it's for. I mean, of course, as an adult child, we know what they're for later on in life, but they'll learn that along the way.
Oh
So,
Lord.
but to answer the question, what could someone have done to help me during that time? Oh, so, um, my first child, which was at a young age, so I have experience from teens to 30s. So at a young age, I feel like Rose, like I think the best thing that someone could have done for me was provide support. Like, at that age, you're so like you don't know anything,
Naive.
so naive, you're scared because it's the first time you're going through it and
Mm-hmm.
you haven't found independency. I think I just made up a word, but if I didn't, kudos to me.
Nah, that's a word.
Independency.
That's a
Okay,
word.
I hadn't found independency, but I had to become independent because now there's a child that's going to be depending on me. So it was like a lot of things that were changing that I felt like instead of saying I told you so, it's more so
Mm.
like we're here now and let's figure out how we can get through this.
Yeah.
Um, and outside of that, education. I feel like education. I had to literally. I didn't when my water broke. I didn't know that what was going on. I literally thought I had peed on myself. I was like, Lord, I done
Oh.
peed in the bed at the age of 19, you know? And then if it wasn't for some of the books that I got from the clinic when I was going to my regularly scheduled appointments, I wouldn't have known that I was going into labor, because one of them has said, you know, when you're going into labor, it may be a little bit of pink when you wipe. And that was one of the things that happened. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going into labor. Had that not happened, I would have went into labor.
Same.
And I mean, something could have happened to my baby
Yeah.
because I didn't go to the doctor, you know. But because I read that, and I'm that type of person, like I like to educate myself. I read that and I got notice of it. And I'm like, okay, I think I might be going into labor. I don't know, but I think I should go to the hospital.
That was the same thing with me. That's exactly how mine was. I'm like, I think this is happening, but I'm not. I mean, because it's your first time, so you're
Right.
not really sure what your body doing. Like, I think this is it, but I'm not. Girl, I kept calling the damn doctor every 5 minutes. It was like, okay, ma'am, maybe you should go to the
Come in.
hospital. I
You
think
need
you
to
should just
come
come on
in.
in.
Right. Right. Now with the last two, I was more up in age. I was a little bit more educated. I had already seen a couple of my sisters give birth. So I was like, oh, I know what's going on here.
Yeah.
So, but with the last two, the one thing I would say that I felt like would have been helpful is, because I already have one and then there was others, you know, I felt like that support of, you know, like, do you need help with XYZ after you give birth? Especially because I had C-sections. It's like I had a 1.5-year-old and then I was giving birth to a new one. So it's like, technically, it's like, if I had a C-section with the other one, it doesn't make sense for me to be picking up a 1.5-year-old baby. So I think it would have been
Right.
helpful. Just like, hey, let me come by if you need me to wash dishes, if you need me to do laundry, if you need
Right.
me to just take the kids for a little bit so you can get your mental together,
There
you
you
know,
go.
whatever. Just that little hour where I could just go and take a shower without having to jump
Yep.
out and do this, or, oh my God, the
Yep.
baby's up, you know, let me hurry up and take a shower.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would be helpful,
Yep.
would have been helpful.
Yep. Like I said, it happened to come from work and go straight into that every single day, like no break. You go from 10 hours to another 10 hours of being a new mom to a crying kid who needs all of your attention.
Right.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you for tuning into our podcast. Again, if you enjoyed our content, please subscribe to our channel, like and comment. We love feedback. While you're at it, go follow us on Instagram and all streaming platforms. Wherever you stream your podcast on, we are there. Also, if you have a topic that you would like for us to discuss, or if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, feel free to email us. Today we talked about postpartum and perinatal depression, and we talked about how we mentioned a couple of signs that lead to it, or that you as a bystander can notice in someone, in your loved one, in your significant other. Educate yourself on these because it can prevent a lot of things from happening. Support your significant other, and when I say support, it goes both ways. Support the mother. Of course, the mother should support the father too. But men, definitely educate yourselves, because when you fail to educate yourselves, you can't provide the support that's needed. And it's not just support for the mother, it's support for the child. Because if you have a mother that's being supported, then the child is going to be supported and nurtured by the mother.
Yeah.
So it's a team effort all the way around. Employers, support your employees that have babies and need to breastfeed. It's a teamwork effort. And as an employer, you are part of the family, because we spend 8 hours plus
Yep.
around. So again, thank y'all. Educate yourselves, and see you next week for your weekly scoop serving. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.